Consistency is the foundation of transformation because nothing in your life can change permanently until your actions become predictable and aligned with your vision. Transformation isn't a sudden event or a moment of inspiration. It's the result of doing the right things repeatedly until they reshape the way you think, the way you move, and the way you respond. When you commit to consistency, you give your mind and your habits enough time to synchronize with the future you're trying to build. Real transformation requires stability, and stability is born from the routines you practice daily. Every major breakthrough you desire depends on your willingness to keep showing up even when excitement fades. Anyone can act with enthusiasm for a day or two, but transformation demands a depth of commitment that outlasts mood swings, frustrations, and setbacks. Consistency is the tool that rewires your identity by proving to yourself through repeated action that you are capable of growth. Each time you follow through, you break down one more layer of doubt and replace it with another layer of confidence. Consistency also eliminates the chaos that comes from living in reaction mode. When you are consistent, your life begins to follow a rhythm that supports your goals. You stop drifting, you stop guessing, and you stop depending on motivation to carry you. Instead, you build momentum through small, repeated behaviors that compound over time. This momentum becomes the unseen force that pushes you forward even on the days when you don't feel like moving. Transformation doesn't happen when you occasionally make the right choice. It happens when the right choice becomes your automatic response. That shift only occurs when you do things often enough that they stop feeling like effort and start feeling like identity. Consistency is what turns discipline into instinct. It takes your vision from something you hope for and converts it into something you live out regularly. Every step of growth becomes more attainable when you embrace consistency because it breaks big goals into manageable, repeatable actions. Instead of being overwhelmed by the distance between where you are and where you want to be, you focus on the next step, and the next step becomes easier each time you take it. These small victories accumulate, and eventually the gap closes because your consistent effort has filled it. Consistency strengthens your focus because it teaches you to prioritize what matters over what distracts. When you show up daily for your purpose, you become less tolerant of the things that pull you off track. You begin to recognize the patterns, environments, and habits that drain your energy, and you develop the discipline to avoid them. This sharpened clarity is a direct result of acting with steady intention. Transformation also relies on consistency because consistency builds trust in yourself. When you keep your promises to yourself day after day, you create a bond with your own potential. You no longer rely on external validation to push you forward because your own actions confirm your capabilities. This self-trust becomes the quiet confidence that fuels long-term success. Consistency is what reveals your true strength because it forces you to push beyond initial enthusiasm and into sustained effort. Anyone can work hard when inspiration hits, but consistency is what demands character. It exposes your weaknesses, strengthens your endurance, and teaches you how to keep moving even when progress feels slow or invisible. This internal toughness is what allows transformation to take root and expand. As you commit to consistency, you begin to see that transformation isn't about dramatic changes, but about gradual alignment. Each day you act in accordance with your goals, your old patterns lose power and your new patterns gain strength. Over time, these repeated actions sculpt a version of you that is more capable, more disciplined, and more in control of your life. Consistency ultimately becomes the foundation of transformation because it is the only way to build a future that doesn't collapse under pressure. When your habits are strong, your discipline is solid, and your intentions guide your actions day after day, transformation is no longer something you pursue, but something you embody. Discipline overrides emotion because emotions are temporary, unpredictable, and easily influenced by circumstances, while discipline is anchored in intention and purpose. When you rely on emotion to determine your actions, you become a slave to whatever you feel in the moment. Some days you'll feel inspired and other days you won't. And if your consistency depends on those fluctuations, your progress will always be unstable. Discipline steps in as the internal authority that tells you what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, grounding your actions in commitment instead of mood. Every goal you've ever dreamed of requires discipline because the journey will never be emotionally convenient. There will be days filled with frustration, fatigue, doubt, or boredom. And if emotion is in control, you'll give in to comfort instead of growth. Discipline refuses to negotiate with excuses. It reminds you that you don't need to feel ready to move forward. You just need to be willing to act. It transforms effort into routine and routine into results, while emotions simply fade with time. Discipline protects your progress by creating structure around your intentions. When emotions try to distract you with impulses or temptations, discipline provides a clear path back to your priorities. It prevents you from being thrown off course by temporary feelings that don't align with your long-term vision. With discipline, you build habits that hold you steady even in moments when your emotions try to pull you in the opposite direction. This stability becomes the backbone of every breakthrough you experience. Emotions often push you toward what feels good right now, while discipline pushes you toward what will feel right in the future. Discipline is delayed gratification in action. It understands that sacrifice today creates strength tomorrow. It teaches you to push past the urge for comfort and lean into the discomfort that builds growth. Over time, the discipline you practice begins to shape your character, allowing you to give less power to fleeting feelings and more power to intentional choices. When discipline overrides emotion, you stop seeking motivation and start creating momentum. Motivation is unpredictable. It shows up when it wants to and disappears just as quickly. But discipline doesn't need inspiration. Discipline acts. Discipline moves. Discipline performs. This consistency builds a confidence that emotion could never provide because you start to trust yourself more deeply when you know you can rely on your actions, not your mood. Discipline strengthens your mental resilience because it teaches you to do what's necessary even when your emotions protest. Each time you follow through despite discomfort, you expand your internal capacity to handle challenges. You begin to see obstacles not as reasons to quit, but as opportunities to reinforce your commitment. This shift in perspective only comes from repeatedly choosing discipline over emotion and proving to yourself that you're stronger than your impulses. When you allow discipline to lead, you develop a mindset rooted in responsibility rather than reaction. Emotions make you reactive. They push you to respond quickly, impulsively, or irrationally. Discipline makes you intentional. It forces you to pause, think, and act in alignment with your values. This level of intentionality helps you stay calm in chaos, focused in distraction, and determined in difficulty because you're no longer controlled by emotional waves. Discipline also unlocks consistency, and consistency is what transforms your identity. Each disciplined action is like a brick placed in the foundation of the person you're becoming. It reinforces that you are capable of doing hard things, capable of honoring commitments, and capable of building a life that reflects your goals rather than your moods. Eventually, these disciplined choices accumulate into a lifestyle that no longer depends on emotional highs to keep going. Emotions can inspire action, but discipline sustains it. Emotions introduce the desire for change, but discipline builds the change itself. When discipline overrides emotion, you gain control of your direction and create a steady, focused path toward the future you envision. This shift elevates your thinking, sharpens your behavior, and strengthens every area of your life because you stop allowing temporary feelings to dictate long-term outcomes. As discipline becomes your guide, you realize that emotions aren't the enemy. They simply aren't reliable leaders. They can coexist with discipline, but they cannot replace it. You allow emotions to be present without giving them power, and you move forward based on purpose, not impulse. This level of mastery is what allows real growth to take place because you're no longer driven by how you feel, but by who you're committed to becoming. Momentum is created through repetition because nothing gains strength, speed, or power in your life unless you practice it over and over again until it becomes second nature. You cannot expect progress from sporadic effort or occasional commitment. Momentum is built when you take consistent steps in the same direction, allowing each action to reinforce the next. Every repeated behavior adds weight to your intention and pushes you a little farther than the day before, creating a force that becomes increasingly difficult to stop. When you repeat an action long enough, you begin to move with greater efficiency and confidence. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. What once required effort becomes automatic. This is how momentum works. It grows quietly at first, almost invisibly, until one day the things that once drained your energy now empower you. Repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds speed, making your progress smoother and more natural with each attempt. Repetition eliminates hesitation because it reduces uncertainty. The more you do something, the less you fear it. You begin to understand the rhythm, the process, and the challenges involved. This knowledge gives you an advantage because you no longer approach your tasks with doubt. You approach them with understanding. As repetition strengthens your skill, it simultaneously weakens your excuses, allowing momentum to take the lead and carry you forward. Momentum also builds because repetition trains your mind to expect progress. Each time you show up and put in the work, you send a message to your subconscious that growth is non-negotiable. Eventually, your mind begins to align with your actions, reducing resistance and increasing your drive. This internal alignment makes it easier to continue because your thoughts, habits, and intentions are all pointed in the same direction, fueling each other with every repeated effort. Repetition also helps you push through the plateaus that often stop people early in their journey. Many quit when progress slows, but momentum is often created during these slow seasons. Each repeated action during a plateau increases your endurance and prepares you for the next wave of growth. Instead of stopping, you keep moving, and eventually the small repeated steps accumulate into a breakthrough that only persistence could unlock. Momentum becomes powerful when repetition builds discipline. Every time you repeat a habit, you strengthen your ability to keep going regardless of how you feel. This discipline acts as a protective force against distraction and discouragement. When momentum and discipline work together, quitting becomes more difficult than continuing because you've already invested too much energy, focus, and consistency into your journey to turn back now. Repetition sharpens your skill set, making your actions more impactful over time. Whether it's learning, training, creating, or improving, each repetition adds another layer of competence. This competence multiplies your results because you're no longer operating at the same level you started at. Even small improvements compound into significant advantages when repeated consistently, and this compounding effect is a major driver of momentum. Momentum grows because repetition builds belief. Every completed action becomes evidence that you can follow through, and this evidence strengthens your confidence. As your belief increases, your willingness to take bigger steps increases as well. Eventually, the combination of confidence and repetition creates a flow state where progress feels natural. This internal belief fuels an external force that propels you forward with greater momentum than effort alone ever could. Repetition also creates momentum by reducing friction. The hardest part of any journey is usually the beginning, when everything feels unfamiliar and progress is slow. But as you repeat the process, the friction decreases. You stop overthinking, you stop doubting, you stop analyzing every detail, you simply act. This reduction in mental resistance allows momentum to build faster because you're no longer wasting energy on hesitation. Momentum is created through repetition because repetition is the engine behind all meaningful change. The more you do something, the more natural it becomes, and the more natural it becomes, the faster you move. Over time, repetition transforms effort into flow and flow into progress. With each repeated action, you add another push to the wheel of momentum, and eventually that wheel begins to turn on its own, carrying you farther than you ever thought possible. Your future rises or falls on your daily decisions because the trajectory of your life is shaped not by occasional moments of inspiration, but by the choices you make repeatedly. Every decision you make becomes a brick in the foundation of your future, and whether that foundation is strong or fragile depends entirely on the consistency of those choices. Small decisions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they accumulate into powerful patterns that either elevate your life or limit it. The direction you move in tomorrow is determined by what you choose to do today. When you recognize that your future is built choice by choice, you begin to understand the weight of your habits. The decisions you make regarding discipline, focus, health, relationships, and purpose all create ripple effects. that extend far beyond the moment. Choosing growth over comfort, action over procrastination, and responsibility over excuses reshapes your identity. These decisions compound, gradually transforming your mindset and influencing the opportunities that come your way. Your future isn't shaped by a single choice, but by thousands of small ones stacked on top of each other. Daily decisions matter because they form the routines that govern your life. Every time you choose to follow through on something important, you strengthen a habit that makes it easier to repeat the behavior tomorrow. Likewise, every time you choose to delay, avoid, or neglect something essential, you reinforce a habit that weakens your discipline. Habits don't just appear, they are built through the decisions you make every day. Your future depends on whether you're building habits that serve your goals or ones that sabotage them. Your decisions also determine your mental environment, the thoughts you entertain, the content you consume, the people you listen to, and the beliefs you reinforce all influence how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. When you choose to feed your mind with inspiration, knowledge, and clarity, you raise your internal standards. When you choose to feed it negativity, fear, or distraction, you lower them. The quality of your decisions directly impacts the quality of your mindset, and your mindset determines the quality of your future. Daily choices shape your character, and your character determines how you show up in the world. Integrity, discipline, humility, resilience. These qualities are developed through consistent decisions made in private, not through dramatic moments in public. The decision to be honest when it's easier to hide, to work hard when no one is watching, to take responsibility when excuses feel comfortable, all build a foundation of strength that supports long-term success. Your character is simply the accumulation of your decisions, and your future depends on the strength of that character. The opportunities you attract are also influenced by your decisions. Success rarely arrives unexpectedly. It arrives because your daily choices have prepared you for it. When you choose to learn, to improve, to grow, to show up, and to serve with excellence, you open doors that would have remained closed otherwise. People trust consistency. Opportunities trust preparation. Your decisions send signals to the world about the level at which you're ready to operate, and your future responds accordingly. Daily decisions determine how you handle adversity. When you consistently choose discipline, patience, and persistence, you build resilience that carries you through setbacks. But when you choose avoidance, shortcuts, or self-pity, you weaken your ability to face challenges with strength. The future will always test you, and your ability to rise depends on the preparation you've done through your decisions, long before the test arrives. Resilience is not built in crisis, it's built in routine. Your future rises or falls based on whether your decisions are aligned with your purpose. Every day you choose between alignment and distraction. You can choose to move closer to your vision or drift further from it. When your decisions match your purpose, even small actions feel meaningful and progress becomes inevitable. But when your decisions contradict your purpose, you feel stuck, confused, or frustrated. Even if you're busy, alignment is created through intentional choices, repeated consistently. The direction of your relationships also grows from your daily decisions. Who you choose to spend time with, what boundaries you set, how you communicate, and what values you prioritize shape the people who surround your life. These relationships influence your energy, your focus, and your emotional well-being. Decisions in your relationships either lift you toward a stronger future or pull you into cycles that drain your potential. Choosing wisely today protects your growth for years to come. Ultimately, your daily decisions are seeds. You plant them today, but you harvest them in the future. Some seeds grow into strength, confidence, skill, and success. Others grow into regret, stagnation, and frustration. The future doesn't arrive randomly. It arrives as the harvest of what you've repeatedly chosen. Every choice you make either elevates your future or limits it. And recognizing this power gives you the ability to shape a life that reflects your highest potential. Accountability is non-negotiable because without it, even the strongest intentions collapse under the weight of excuses and inconsistency. When you hold yourself accountable, you create a standard that refuses to bend for comfort or convenience. Accountability forces you to confront the gap between what you say you want and what you actually do. It strips away the stories you tell yourself and exposes the truth about your commitment, allowing you to grow from a place of honesty rather than illusion. When accountability becomes a core value, you no longer hide behind circumstances or blame external factors for your lack of progress. You begin to recognize that your results are a direct reflection of your actions, and that realization empowers you to take control of your life. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect environment, you take responsibility for creating your own momentum. Accountability shifts your mindset from passive to proactive, turning obstacles into opportunities to rise higher. Being accountable means honoring your word even when no one is watching. It requires you to show up for yourself with the same seriousness that you show up for others. Many people keep promises to everyone except themselves, but accountability demands that you treat your own goals with respect. This internal integrity builds trust within yourself and strengthens your belief in your ability to follow through. Every time you rise to meet the standard you set, you reinforce your own reliability. Accountability also protects you from the comfort of excuses. Excuses may feel satisfying in the moment, but they rob you of growth in the long run. When you hold yourself accountable, you refuse to sugarcoat your shortcomings or justify your lack of effort. Instead, you look honestly at what needs improvement and commit to doing better. This level of transparency with yourself prevents you from falling into cycles of stagnation and keeps you aligned with your purpose. Accountability creates clarity because it forces you to evaluate your actions objectively. When something isn't working, you don't ignore it, you analyze it. When goals aren't being met, you don't pretend everything is fine, you adjust your strategy. This kind of self-awareness sharpens your decisions and helps you move forward with direction instead of uncertainty. Accountability turns reflection into progress because you're willing to examine both your strengths and your weaknesses. When you embrace accountability, you also elevate the people and environments you allow into your life. You stop tolerating relationships that encourage complacency and start seeking out influences that challenge you to grow. Accountability doesn't thrive in environments of mediocrity. It thrives where discipline and purpose are valued. Surrounding yourself with people who also value accountability amplifies your growth because they reinforce the standards you are committed to maintaining. Accountability strengthens discipline because it eliminates the option of quitting when things get difficult. When you hold yourself responsible for your goals, you can't simply walk away when challenges arise. You push through discomfort, knowing that the only way to honor your commitment is through consistent effort. This resilience becomes a powerful force in your life, enabling you to break through barriers that once felt impossible. Accountability fuels perseverance by reminding you that quitting is not an acceptable option. True accountability requires humility because it demands that you admit when you fall short. Instead of hiding failures or pretending everything is fine, you acknowledge your mistakes and learn from them. This humility builds character and deepens your resilience. It also frees you from the pressure of perfection, allowing you to focus on progress instead of pride. When accountability and humility work together, growth becomes inevitable because you're always willing to improve. Accountability sharpens your purpose because it keeps your actions aligned with your intentions. It stops you from drifting into distractions or losing sight of what matters. Each day it brings you back to your mission, reminding you of the life you're striving to build. Accountability becomes the anchor that keeps you grounded in your goals and prevents you from being carried away by temporary emotions, setbacks, or temptations. It ensures that your path is guided by commitment rather than convenience. When accountability becomes non-negotiable, you transform from someone who hopes to succeed into someone who guarantees progress through consistent, honest effort. You stop waiting for results to happen and start creating them, one responsible decision at a time. Accountability becomes your internal compass, guiding you toward excellence and ensuring that everything you do reflects the future you're committed to building. Transformation requires action, not intention, because intentions alone change nothing about your life. You can dream, plan, imagine, and even speak confidently about your goals, but until you take tangible steps toward them, everything remains exactly the same. Transformation demands movement. It demands that you step beyond thinking and enter the realm of doing. Your life only shifts when your behaviors shift, and those shifts require consistent, deliberate action that turns ideas into reality. Without action, intentions become empty promises you never fulfill. Many people get stuck believing that wanting change is the same as creating change, but desire without action leads to stagnation. Intention feels good in the moment because it gives the illusion of progress, yet it produces no real outcomes. Action is what separates wishful thinkers from achievers. Every time you act on your intentions, you convert potential into progress. This commitment to doing, rather than hoping, becomes the momentum that drives transformation forward. Action builds evidence that change is possible. When you take even the smallest step, you prove to yourself that progress is within reach. That evidence strengthens your belief and encourages you to keep going. Without action, belief has nothing to stand on. Without action, fear remains unchallenged. Without action, doubt grows louder. Transformation requires you to challenge every old pattern with new behavior, and that challenge only happens through consistent movement toward your goals. Taking action forces you out of your comfort zone, and that discomfort is where true transformation begins. Comfort protects the old version of you. Action exposes you to the possibility of becoming someone new. The moment you take a step forward, you confront habits, fears, and limitations that have held you in place. This confrontation creates the space for growth because you cannot change what you refuse to face. Action becomes the bridge between who you are and who you're trying to become. Transformation also relies on action because action creates clarity. You figure out what works only by doing. You learn what needs adjustment only by trying. You discover your strengths and weaknesses by taking steps, not by thinking about them. Intention alone produces no feedback. Action produces lessons, direction, and understanding. These lessons refine your path and make your transformation more intentional because you're guided by experience rather than assumption. Action builds discipline, and discipline is essential for sustained transformation. When you decide to act repeatedly, even when motivation is low, you develop the strength to continue despite challenges. This discipline becomes part of your identity. It rewires your thinking and aligns your habits with your goals. Intentions can spark excitement, but only disciplined action can maintain progress. Transformation requires a long-term commitment to doing the work, not just imagining the outcome. When you choose action, you break the cycle of procrastination. Procrastination thrives on intention without follow-through. It feeds on hesitation and convinces you that you'll start tomorrow. But transformation cannot wait for the perfect moment. It happens when you act despite imperfection, despite fear, despite uncertainty. Every step you take dismantles the power of procrastination and strengthens the momentum that carries you toward growth. Taking action exposes you to opportunities that intentions alone could never reveal. When you move, new doors open. When you try, new possibilities appear. When you step forward, you attract resources, people, and experiences that align with your effort. Opportunities are drawn to movement, not indecision. Your transformation expands each time you push yourself into environments where growth can actually occur. And those environments only arise when you act. Action transforms your identity because it changes the way you see yourself. When you take responsibility for your growth, you stop identifying with the version of you that hesitates, doubts, or delays. You begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, and determined. This shift in self-perception is one of the most powerful parts of transformation because you start living like the person you once only dreamed of becoming. This identity shift cannot be achieved through intention alone. It is earned through action. Transformation requires action because every meaningful change in your life is built by what you do repeatedly. Thoughts may inspire you, intentions may guide you, but only action can reshape your habits, your mindset, and your direction. Each step you take becomes a foundational piece of the life you want to build. By choosing action again and again, you turn your intentions into outcomes and your dreams into reality.